Silence, and we're going to start. All right, welcome to Broadway Breakfast. Happy Saturday morning to everyone out there, except for the last place Houston Texans. That feels good to say. Hopefully that sticks throughout the whole season as a running theme. Joining me today is Zach Lyons of F Words Pod fame and a source of tons of fantasy football information on our site at BroadwaySportsMedia.com and recent radio star of the Shoals area in Alabama. So check that out if you're living down there. James Esparza, better known as South Texas Titan and our resident meme machine. He also decorated our diner with one-of-a-kind drawings for everyone to enjoy. Jonathan Bourne, the man behind the scenes, pulling all the strings, and my co-host on the Coach's Corner and our fearless CEO. Welcome, gentlemen. Got some news to get into first some breaking news before we get into anything else. Want to bring up the Isaiah Wilson news this morning as it broke right before we were about to go on to live stream. So we were collecting some things, looking into that. Zach, I know that you were the one that brought it to our attention. So if I'm going to give you the floor, go ahead and let us know what we discovered.
Well, it was first reported by A to Z Sports that Isaiah Wilson last night was late in the morning was arrested for a DUI. And I'm going to take a different approach to this. I know everybody wants us to trash Isaiah Wilson and call him a bust and do this and that. That's not the position I'm going to take. Now, first off, what I'm going to say is not an excuse for what he did. And he's on a very rocky path and on very thin ice. But to allow myself to put myself a personal touch on it, I guess you'd say, I am divorced. And when I found out my wife was cheating on me, and at the same time, I broke my hand. I was on painkillers. I went and drank, and I drove when I shouldn't have and woke up in an ambulance. And it was an eye-opening experience for me. I flipped my car. It was crushed. I'm surprised I survived. Luckily, no accident was involved with Isaiah Wilson, but I'm not going to sit here and trash Isaiah Wilson because I don't know what's going on in his life. And from the comments that we've heard from Taylor, which they read worse than what they are, but from Taylor Lewan, it sounds like Isaiah Wilson is a 21-year-old who is struggling in a new place. And yeah. I hate that it got to the point of whatever is going on in his head, that it got to a point where he felt that he needed to drink and drive. And at this point, it sucks. It's not an excuse. I'm sure the Titans will handle it and they will punish him. And he has been doing, dumb stuff previously, but it can all be depression related. It can all be just stupid. I don't know. Nobody knows, but we shouldn't as a society just jump on people who we don't know what's going on in their head and in their life. I live a pretty good life, even going through the divorce. I still had a really good life. I have parents that love me. I had a good support system, and I still made a dumb choice and made dumb decisions that led to that dumb choice. It wasn't just getting behind the wheel. It was driving to a bar, having one drink, having two drinks, having three drinks. It was a a bunch of stupid decisions. And, it's my personal story. Now, maybe he's not depressed, and maybe he is just a dumb kid making bad decisions and not being smart, but we don't know either way. The biggest thing is that nobody got hurt in this decision.
Yep.
He's okay. And hopefully, if he is in need of help, the team will find him that help and be able to support him and not leave him on the side.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this situation too, where it's we can all agree that what he was doing, obviously is smart. We recommend not ever getting yourself in that situation, but we've all made mistakes. And if you haven't been caught, count yourself lucky, because we've all been there. We've all done stupid things when we were younger. I'm not excusing any of it at all, but I think that the message that Zach is trying to send here, and that I would like to really back up, is that I think there's times that you coach someone up, uplift them, be there as a support and guidance. And there's times when you give up on people. And this isn't one of those times, clearly. And we're hoping that Isaiah, whatever the reason is, finds either, if he's needing help in one way there, or if this is him adjusting, if people on the team can wrap their arms around him and not just let him fall by the wayside. And this is bigger than football, right? And I mean, this football is great. We love it. And one of our topics here that you can see is football is back. And it is fantastic. I'm glad that we're able to talk about football and have this show. We'll get more into the show and some other things here in a little bit, but football isn't everything in life. As a father of two beautiful girls now, not to get too sappy, you learn that there's more to it from there. And Zach, I think it's fair to say that you went through your struggles. You're on the back end now. Things are good for you.
Yeah. I mean, that things got better. I sought help. I, got the help I needed to find. It took a while for me to be in a happy place, but I mean, I've opened myself up to my fiance, who we are getting married in November, and we've been together for 4 years, and it's good stuff. Do I still get bouts where I just don't want to talk and don't want to do anything? Yeah, sure. I mean, that depression doesn't ever leave, and it's just what it is. And it's a personal struggle, but I struggle less every day.
Yep, that's good. And hopefully, Isaiah, I think the main point here is instead of beating him up, instead of saying things like, a first rounder shouldn't act like this, I hope that he gets the help as a person first, and then he figures out the football stuff, because Titans will be fine. He'll be fine if he just can take a breath and understand that everyone goes through these frustrations. There's some growing pains. I'm still a Isaiah Wilson fan. Hopefully, I'm not sure if he'll ever get that from me personally, and I don't care, but I want to say it to everyone out there watching. Isaiah Wilson needs support over anything else. And yes, he should know that he did something wrong, and he just doesn't need to do that again. It needs to adjust the way he's acting to become a professional. I'll hear all those arguments, and I agree with you, but I think that the stance we want to take is compassion, and just if he's going through some stuff, understand that he's got ways to work through that, away from football and through his teammates and family, his new family. If he can think of it like that, hopefully he'll get better. So
I think this is the perfect team and the perfect staff for this to have happened on, just because we know that Taylor Lewan has had his own struggles due to concussions and mental problems. We know that they have patience because of the Vic Beasley thing. I mean, we just went through all that. Now, I just think that with the strong offensive line leadership, with Coach Vrabel, with John Robinson, and with Amy Adams Strunk, I mean, look at what the chance they took on Jeffrey Simmons, and considering what happened in college on there. This is a team that's going to try to rally around him, but he has to be the one to open himself up to it.
Sure.
Well, and I think kind of what you hit on there, you talked about Vrabel a little bit. It's kind of topical with the Jadeveon Clowney press conference. Clowney talked about when he got hurt, Vrabel still took the time to practice with him and go through rehab with him. That shows a coach that actually cares. And trust me, in a world that is very much these type A personalities, this macho man kind of world, that is fewer and far between than you would imagine. And so to have somebody that has displayed that kind of caring, and they talk about it, talk about Vrabel going through these one-on-one drills and getting involved. This is where that can really come out more so than just in football, but it's a coach who actually cares about you. Because trust me, I see comments here about how he needs to be cut from his job. I can tell you, I'm not going to share my own story just because that was such a great story there, Zach, and I don't want to rob from it. But the last thing you want, whether you say it or not, whenever you're dealing with depression, is to be cut out and to be alone. So from a human perspective, that I couldn't find that farther from the truth that he needs to be cut. Now, from a football perspective, from a team, yeah, there's a conversation to be had.
Sure.
But as a human being, I couldn't find a worse thing that could happen to him.
I regardless of your college football fandom and who you agree with, I think that most people would agree that Nick Saban's one of the best going right now. And one of his, to steal something from him, and I'm going to paraphrase, I can't remember the exact quote, but anytime one of his guys gets in trouble for the first time, he kind of goes to this whole, what am I supposed to do? Give up on the kid? That's not what we're here for. And whatever, I know he's in there to make millions. He's making lots of money. He can say whatever he wants to, but the point of that is what I'm getting at, is that you just don't give up on somebody after one mistake, and you got to give him a chance. And you start to be down on him and tell him he sucks, or we're going to cut you, then he's just going to spiral further, and then you've lost him. You got to give somebody a chance to respond and rebound. So James, I know you've been pretty silent, but do you have any thoughts on it?
I mean, I kind of view it like the whole protesting thing. We're bringing that all to light this year, and everybody's talking about remembering the humanity in the players and not just making it about just football. And everything that Isaiah Wilson's doing, it could just be a cry for help. And, he's a 21-year-old kid, just got drafted, new contract, new city, away from his family. I mean, he's adjusting. Give him a chance to adjust. He's making some mistakes, but let's see how he turns this around.
Perfect. And dude, I got to say, I love that hat.
Thank you.
So that's our Isaiah Wilson news. We got that right before we went live. So we wanted to sit down and talk about it for a second. I'm going to move on from it from now. Obviously, we'll respond we'll respond to some comments on Twitter if that's okay with everybody. If anybody has any major questions, but let's move on right now. Let's get into what we were actually going to get into. Pick the energy back up. It is Saturday morning. It is week 1, game weekend. We're here. We finally made it. We had some thoughts on that earlier in the week. All of our shows been talking about it. The Tennessee Titans had the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. It's an exciting time, but we're going to bring this to you every Saturday for the foreseeable future at the Broadway Breakfast. We're going to come in. It's going to be kind of a catch-all show. So it's not just going to be football. We'll talk about basketball here and there because they're in the playoffs. Hockey's in the playoffs. Baseball's going on. There's a lot going on out there that we can talk about, and big news, big things. Obviously, we won't probably talk a ton of baseball because I think I may be the only baseball fan in the room right now, possibly. But at the same time, if something big happens, if there's some big news, we'll talk about it because that's what we're going to kind of go around, look and see highlights of the week, those kind of things. Feel free to chime in on our, except for the first topic, feel free to chime in out there on our chat, ask some questions. We'll get to them. JB Jonathan is monitoring the chat. I think Zach is as well. So we'll get to them as they ask them. So let's have some fun. Let's get into some fun topics. And first thing I want to talk is like we said, football is back.
Woo.
Went through some pandemics, some doubts. Obviously there's still some doubts out there, but it seems like it's going well. And that makes me happy, but we're looking into it. We had Thursday night football. And like I said, Houston, you're in last place. Thank you very much for that. You looked terrible. Or the Kansas City Chiefs with the Kansas City Chiefs, whatever. Leave that up to it. But it was good to sit down and watch it. Like we said, Jonathan and I sat down and watched it on his brand new 85-inch. If you listen to Coach's Corner and listen to the struggles of hanging that thing on the wall, but we sat there and watched it on that TV.
I'm about to go on another rant about electronic.
Let's not do that. You said their name.
I'm having a sip of coffee right now.
No plugs.
Oh yeah, I don't care. I just put them out on blast right now. It's way too early. I don't care.
Zach, what was your impressions of that first game, and how happy are you the football's back?
First off, I'm very happy. I mean, I needed football. I can't speak for everybody. I know there were people that said there are things bigger than football. In my life, for what I needed football. I needed the escape. I was so happy that the Texans lost, and they looked bad. I mean, David Johnson looked good, but this right side of the offensive line looked bad.
Yep.
And it was funny is after the David Johnson touchdown that initially happened, offensive linemen Twitter were like, oh, this is the year that the Texans have a really great offensive line. And this is why they spend, draft picks on Tunsil to trade for him. And then Titus Howard and
Titus Howard
Sharpling or whatever his last name is. And then they got decimated the rest of the game. Like
Howard looked awful. Let me just I came across that game and like, that is a bad tackle, man.
This
I don't
whole
know
offense was out of sync.
God,
It was bad. I mean, Will Fuller was dropping balls. Deshaun Watson was underthrowing, overthrowing, throwing in the dirt. He looked horrible. If you're a Titans fan, that's a very, very good start because you know who they face? They face the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Vikings. And when they face the Vikings, the Vikings will have their full defensive line back because Danielle Hunter technically should be back. And they could technically start off 0-4. Like, that's no joke. This Texans team could start off 0-4.
I'm here for it.
Are we taking bets on when Bill O'Brien gets fired?
Well, that's going to be a real
fire himself.
That's going to be a real tough discussion with his GM, right?
Yeah.
Insert Spider-Man meme here. I would love to be part of that conversation. It's just him, camera, and the mirror. You suck. I know. Get out. Oh, make me. It's an interesting dynamic here, and we got to protect him because as a Titans fan, he's got to stay. He's making all the right decisions for the Titans.
And then Chris Collins, can we talk about Chris Collinsworth?
Please.
After the David Johnson touchdown, saying that he thinks the Texans won the trade or whatever he was talking about. Like, I tell you, I talked about it for a shameless plug, the fourth down decision on BroadwaySportsMedia.com.
Please plug away.
Overreaction. This is the overreaction week, right? So the first game, everybody had to put out their initial take. There's no take to have. The Texans got the raw end of the deal. You saw it the whole game. You knew before it even started. Why does one play suddenly change your mind that, it was actually a pretty good deal? Like, guys, and speaking of takes, Jeff Schwartz saying that his brother didn't get whipped and it was Mahomes' fault. Oh, that was classic Schwartz.
So if the offensive lineman in the room can stay, that was a horrible play by him. Like what Schwartz was trying to say is that he was.
Oh no.
Now we'll never know what he was going to say.
We'll never know what he was going to say. So with Ryan frozen, Bourne, give us your thoughts on the game. And, we can't hear Bourne because Ryan's frozen. So, James, give us your thought on the game.
Well, I really enjoyed watching the Texans get decimated. It doesn't seem like they were protecting Watson that much better, though he was getting rid of the ball pretty quickly. The Chiefs kind of looked like a business as usual, just scoring when they wanted to. And, I mean, I'm just really excited, especially with the lineup that you mentioned for the Texans. I'm really hoping they go 0-4.
Well, I will say this: you're probably going to see some things shift around on your screen. So don't worry, we'll be back in just a few minutes. So let's talk about from a fantasy perspective, James. Will Fuller, did you see enough from Will Fuller? He got 122 yards, is mainly in garbage time. Did you see enough of a connection between Deshaun Watson and Will Fuller to keep it all going forward?
I think it's always kind of been there, but it seems like anytime they start to develop any real chemistry, he either pulls a hamstring or something. So it's more of his health that I'm worried about, not really his talent.
Yeah, I know that Duke Johnson seems to be fine, but then David Johnson, he has previous wrist problems and he hurt his wrist in that game. So there was that as well. Right. So not a good start for the Texans defense, or the Texans offense. Goal line Texans defense looked good, but who's stopping these Chiefs? From a Titans perspective, will Jadeveon Clowney make enough and Christian Fulton make enough of a difference for us to stop the Chiefs after what you saw?
I think it's still going to be rough. I mean, it seems like they could put any running back in that system and he's going to be successful. And then Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes is just insane. 3 touchdowns, no preseason, nothing, no kind of warm up. It's just he's already there. I think it'll be closer. I don't think Mahomes runs in for that touchdown in the end of the first half of that playoff game with Clowney and Fulton there.
when you look at Bill O'Brien, and this will be from, let's see, what was it got moved. Hold on. Blake Creek, at Blake Creek. Crazy that when O'Brien is gone, you'll have to find a GM and a coach. I mean, do you have to keep, because of that, don't you have to keep Bill O'Brien for the whole year, no matter what the start is? Because if you do fire Bill O'Brien, I mean, you're going to have to fire both Bill O'Briens. So you can't do a GM and a head coaching search in the middle of a season, can you?
I know for the coach, I saw a few tweets mentioning the new offensive coordinator calling the plays, but the GM is where it gets tricky. However, one could argue they've been without a GM since Bill O'Brien's been there, so it could go either way.
I want you to know I stared at my computer really hard, and it fixed itself.
I figured you did.
I apologize for all that. I'm going to have it out with AT&T today. I have no clue why that happened. That's very frustrating, and I apologize to the audience. So let's move on. I'm hoping y'all wrapped up the Houston Texans.
Pretty much.
Great. All I was going to say was what Schwartz was trying to say, that he was pushed him back, and that he was blaming it on Mahomes basically, and the other offensive lineman who allowed the pressure, but his brother stopped his feet and missed with his punch. I'm sorry, you're not going to block anybody, especially Frank Clark, who's coming down the edge. He worked it, but it's one play. But it is nice to say that Mitchell Schwartz's brother got worked, or however
he really blamed it on Mahomes.
Yeah, he did. So we're going to move on, though. So Houston, we have a problem was our topic there. I'm glad y'all wrapped that up. Hopefully they keep it up for our sake, because it's fun to watch them disintegrate. But like we said, we're going to be a catch-all. So let's move on to the other big thing, because this is a big thing for our group, the Celtics Raptors series, because there's three of us in our group, myself, Austin Nelson, and Robert Greenlaw, who are big Celtics fans. And we have a resident salty Raptors fan in Justin Mello. Justin Mello does a lot of great work for us, and I'm glad to have him on our team. But sometimes when he talks about his Raptors and his 1 year of fandom, I want to slap him. It was an all jokes aside, it was an entertaining series. Two evenly matched teams, despite what he's been trying to say and make excuses after the loss last night. Gordon Hayward is out for the Celtics. Hear it, but it was a exciting series. NBA basketball was kind of the first profession to come back. They're in the bubble. They're going to complete their playoffs. They kind of were the first. Like Zach, you were saying, you needed that void filled, football being back. Sports being back kind of helped me. And basketball was one of the first ones to do that successfully. So that gave me hope that the rest of the sports could kind of come along. And the baseball almost destroyed any goodwill that the NBA had put out there. But this was a fun series to watch. And the back and forth in our chat was fun for me. I don't know how y'all viewed it, the back and forth between the three of us and Mello, but I don't know if y'all watched the series at all, but I thought last night watching the game was kind of back and forth. I was like, am I going to be sad talking about this topic today, or am I going to be happy? And I'm happy that Celtics won Game 7, 92-87 to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals to play the Miami Heat, which is a surprise itself, because now you don't have the two top seeds in the Eastern Conference in the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's going to be fun to see, for me, to watch the Celtics and the Heat. So Mello was a little salty. I don't know if y'all caught any of that.
And
I caught all of it.
Little?
Yeah, make sure you check out his Twitter, because I think you guys had a bet there. So I just want to bring as many eyes to that as possible.
He's lucky because all three of us bet him. So he should have that up for 3 times the amount of time, but we let him out of it because he says, oh, Ryan, I didn't see your response when you said you wanted in on the bet too. And Greenlaw, even though he liked my response, I didn't know Greenlaw wanted in, whatever. We're letting him out. He's fine. He just has to do it for 1 week or 1 month or whatever it is.
I'm also happy to hear that all 4 of the people that actually watched the entire series were a part of Broadway.
I'm sure there was at least 6 people across the nation who watched it. I mean, those guys have families too. So moving on then, if we're not going to talk anymore about that, I'm the only one that's going to champion the Celtics win. Yay. Okay, fine. But college football is also back. It's been back for a little bit, but this is I think the first full slate of, you got a lot of different matchups. Before it was kind of games here and there. Miami won on Thursday night, so that was another big game. I missed it, of course, because I was watching the Texans disintegrate. But the football's back. Official football is back, I think, next week, next couple weeks, because SEC kicks off 9/26, I believe. Alabama's playing Missouri. Yay. I'm glad we're opening up with a cupcake for Alabama. I think Big Ten kicks off sometime in 2021, so look forward to that. But looking forward to the best matchups of the week. And I'll be honest with you, looking for it, there weren't a whole lot of good matchups to go through. But like, for example, the two smallest spreads were Kansas State and Coastal Carolina. Kansas favored by 6.5 points there. Texas State and University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners, with Texas State as a 6.5 point favorite. Is that a big matchup down there in Texas, James?
Yeah, I really don't pay attention to Texas State. I'll kind of catch my UTSA Roadrunners every now and again, but I really don't pay attention.
6.5 point dogs today, man. They need your help. They need your fandom.
Oh man.
I feel like you mentioned you took a shot at the Big Ten. As the resident Ohio State fan here, I feel like I got married to the Big Ten with all the indecision that is going on here. I don't know if they're coming back, they're maybe not coming back, they're leaving the whole conference. I don't know. It's pretty frustrating at this point. Like I was, accepting of it, and I got it, whatever, whether I agree with it or not. And then now they're coming back, and it's just an emotional roller coaster at this point.
Emotional. Zach, Jonathan, is there any games anyone's out there looking forward to? Hit the chat up right now where you are, and we'll talk about those games, possibly give us our opinions if we can even think of anything about those teams. But like I said, those are probably your best matchups. Everything else is like a 44, 35, 20-point victory. I think one of the ones I saw was Syracuse versus North Carolina is interesting, but still in that one, North Carolina's a 23-point favorite. So I mean, it's week one for a lot of these teams, so who knows what they're going to look like. But I think North Carolina is ranked 18th to start the season, so it's at least big conference on big conference is what I can say about that one.
I'm excited to watch App State versus Charlotte today at 11 a.m. Charlotte is where one of our very first guests, if not the first guest, Travis Haney, is doing some great work out there with Charlotte. But we have Nate Davis from Charlotte, Darrington Evans from App State. And App State's really fun to watch. After watching a lot of Darrington Evans tape, they're really fun to watch. A great team. I think this will just be a game that you can watch if you have no allegiances and see offense and just watch a game of Madden being played. Just offense everywhere. I'm really excited about that game. And then I'm excited to watch the new Florida State quarterback we've heard a lot of, and he plays they play Georgia Tech today at 2:30, so that will be a good one as well that I'm looking forward to. And I'm sure all of our Texas fans like Justin Graver and Mike will like that Texas game, but, who cares? That's 7 o'clock tonight.
Texas versus UTEP, 7 o'clock on LHN. I'm guessing that's Longhorn Network. Woohoo. But anyway, Texas is 43-point favorites in that game.
It really raises the question, if you take out half of the NCAA, will Texas actually be back?
You got to help it.
This is their break. They're the Sammy Watkins of college football. This is their season. This is the season they do it.
Well, Sammy Watkins has started out pretty strong for Kansas City. So, but just to kind of touch back, Charlotte, App State's 17-point favorites. You can catch that game 11 a.m. on ESPN2. Zach also mentioned the Florida State Georgia Tech. That was another one I was going to get to as big conference, ACC interconference matchup. Georgia Tech, FSU is 12.5-point favorites in that one. That game, I do try to watch at least one Georgia Tech game a year because it always fascinates me that they're still running the offense they are, just watching its majesty, because it's not your current or your vamped up offense that you're seeing across the nation. They're just sticking with it, man. And the triple option, it's a thing of beauty when it's working, but then when they don't have it working, it can be bad. So that's why you see a lot of their games when they're in them, they're low scoring. They control the ball, they control the tempo, but it's fun to at least watch the blocking schemes and the technical side of it. So I always like to sit down and watch the Georgia Tech game. So I'll probably catch that one at the 2:30 hour, and I might check in on Oklahoma just to see what they look like this year. That's always a fun offense to watch. Lincoln Riley's fantastic. He's a great football mind. I know that Jonathan, you like watching him as well. But Jonathan, are there any games you're looking forward to today?
Yeah, I'm actually taking over this topic because I just read a comment here that just got me triggered. So we're jumping back to football is back. General topic here. The scariest move in the division isn't Dabo to the Jaguars. It's Dabo to the Texans. Let me tell you, I would love Dabo Swinney to go to any team that my team has to play. So if I'm a Titans fan, I'm rooting for it because I have zero confidence that Dabo Swinney would be a successful NFL coach. He's a recruiter. He's great. He talks a good game. In the pros, he would be eaten alive, and he's not a schematic genius in any way, shape, or form. If you're telling me Lincoln Riley to the NFL, that's something that would scare me in possibly that offense the Texans run. But that's absurd. Dabo Swinney would be a fraud of an NFL coach.
Yeah, plus, I mean, he's just waiting for Nick Saban to retire so he can take over at Alabama.
That's what I was going to ask.
To get that out there.
Do you think Lincoln Riley ends up on the Jags or the Texans if they both lose their head coaches this year?
I don't know if I'm either one of them if I want to go to the Jaguars, to be honest with
Jags definitely no.
Yeah, for sure. I think James's question or point there is that Lincoln Riley would be a good candidate for the NFL. He's been rumored here and there. I mean, I think that, I think Jerry wanted him. Jerry Jones with Dallas, I think was the rumors.
Yeah, that's my thing. If I'm a college coach, there's a whole lot more job stability and in a lot of cases more pay to stay in college.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep recruiting if you know your recruiter. As long as the recruiting game isn't burning you out, then you're able to actually go down that path and stay there forever. Why you would jump to the NFL, which even the best ones, Bill Belichick at some point that will end, but he's the anomaly. I always say don't compare yourself to the anomalies. So somebody's going to pop in here. Well, Belichick's been with the Patriots for 20 years. Congratulations. Name those coaches, because if you get to 5, I'm going to be surprised. So you talk about that. I'm staying in college. There's not as much pressure. You can just win your conference and coast because nobody's going to fire a coach unless you're one of the big 5 schools, like, your Alabamas, your Ohio States. Go win your 9 games, go win your 10 games in your conference and just coast. There's no reason. If he ain't going to the Cowboys, he is sure as anything ain't going to the Jaguars, and I doubt he'd go to the Texans either.
That was my point. First off, if he wanted to be in the NFL, his opportunity was last year when I'm sure Jerry tried everything he could to get Lincoln Riley. And you're not going to go to a second-rate Texas team while you're one of the first-rate college teams. And then you're definitely not going to Jacksonville. Now, Dabo's a different story. That's interesting. He could follow with Trevor Lawrence and head to Jacksonville, or he could technically go to Deshaun Watson and the Texans. But I don't think he's going to be a good pro coach because his beliefs and his personal beliefs and personal philosophies are going to be a big issue in an NFL locker room.
He would lose that locker room in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and let me say this. I think the Texans are kind of stuck with Bill O'Brien for at least one more year, no matter how bad it gets, because he traded away all their picks. So why bring a head coach into a horrible situation and what GM is going to want to be in this situation where they don't have any draft capital?
Talk about holding a team hostage.
I could see Dabo going to Jacksonville, but it's Jacksonville, guys. Like, there's something in the pool water in Everfield or Everbank Stadium or whatever it's called.
So that's the whole problem about giving a coach the GM role, because that NFL coach, he's kind of protecting his own job. So he doesn't really stand to lose anything if he knows he's in that must-win situation. So you go out there and you start trading away all of your capital, but then it really is holding a team hostage, because if you're the Texans, you know that you can't go get another guy because of the points you just brought up. So that's the problem about not having that division of labor between the GM and the head coach. The GM can still empower the head coach, but still have the future of the franchise in mind. And nowadays they tend to get kind of tied together, but it's still nice to have that line, so you aren't just sacrificing the next 5 years. Nothing happens in decades here in the NFL, but we'll say the next 5 years for a win this year, especially if you have the Chiefs there, because the Chiefs are the Chiefs. So, I mean, I'm not banking and going all in like I have to win when Patrick Mahomes is doing Patrick Mahomes things.
Andy Reid is doing Andy Reid things. I mean, that's just – and let's talk about that. I know backtracking more, but you brought this up on Thursday night, Jonathan, that they have found a really good running back there in Kansas City as well. It's not just Mahomes, but it's more they found it's like this perfect marriage of skill set, usage, and then coaching strategy that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just going to pop in that offense. And I think you made the point that he went to – not that he wouldn't have popped in other offenses, but he definitely went to the one that's going to maximize him the most. So now you've got that situation where you're having to deal with Mahomes, with the receivers they have, the tight end they have, and now they found a running back that just fits like the other running backs they found. To your point there, this is not the year to say that, if you're a lesser team, that we're going to try to compete with Kansas City, because you can't. You got to be the Titans or someone else that are there on the doorstep, that are hoping they added enough pieces here or there to compete with the Chiefs and to get past them in the playoffs.
Well, that's the problem. The Titans say, okay, we're going to compete with the Chiefs by slowing down the offense, slowing down, not stopping, and controlling the clock with running the football and being physical.
Mm-hmm.
The Texans essentially built their team and said, okay, we're going to try and do what the Chiefs do, but better. Good luck with that.
Yeah. You can't out Chiefs the Chiefs to steal your out. You can't out Bama phrase you go to. So yeah, I don't see that happening. Bill O'Brien, I see a situation too where he could still, like, okay, I'm going to step back at my coaching duties and I'll go be the GM. And then when nobody volunteers, nobody applies for the job, then so, okay, I'll step back in. I guess nobody wanted this job that I've created because it's so terrible. Thank you, James. I appreciate the laugh there.
Yeah, no problem.
So the only other thing I'll say about the college games, though, before we leave that topic, unless you've got any other matchups anybody put in the chat, was South Alabama versus Tulane. Tulane's 10.5 point favorite. That is my upset pick of the week. Look for South Alabama and the Jaguars to take the Green Wave to Losttown. I don't know to win that game. That is my upset pick of the week. So go ahead and lock that in, and don't blame me when it doesn't happen. But like we said, football is back. The show is going to try to talk about all kinds of sports in here. And I got to say that it really does feel good that we're talking about looking forward to Monday night, the Titans, the Denver Broncos. We're going to have a couple other preview articles out there on Broadway Sports.com, BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Sorry. And we're going to have a look at everything that Justin Graver just put out a in-depth article this morning going into both sides of the ball. I did an In the Trenches article. Look for Zach and his fantasy fourth down decision article. So a lot of good stuff out there on the website to check out. But looking forward to Monday night and talk about after the game here in just a minute. But I just wanted to see, James, what are you looking forward to, or what are you excited about the most, other than football is back and other than it's the Titans? Like, what are you looking forward to in that game, or what's a player you're going to be looking forward to watch closer?
Well, I'm really excited to see how Clowney's presence changes this defense and how they're flying around on the field. Mostly every year, I'm usually excited to watch the Titans offense. But I think this year I'm actually looking more forward to watching the defense.
More excited defense real quick. Zach, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I mean, obviously Jadeveon Clowney is on everybody's mind, but I'm looking forward to seeing the offense. I mean, I think this is a good opportunity for us to have, for the first time, 2 years in a row where we're off to a fast start on offense. It happened last year with the Cleveland Browns. I'm hoping that it happens again, but I want to see it be a more efficient offense. Like, I want us to score a lot of points, right? But I want us to see it do it in ways that doesn't take a couple big plays and then the defense to score a couple touchdowns. I want it to be offense driven. I want us to put our stamp on the NFL on Monday night. And I think that Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, Adam Humphries, Khalif Raymond, that whole entire offensive line, there is no reason that we should be off to a slow start on offense.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I think it's a business trip. I think the Titans were the better team even before injuries, but with all the injuries that the Broncos have kind of racked up here, you need to go in there and take care of business. I know there's a lot of factors going in. You know, it's an away game, a late game, and that altitude, there are some factors working against the Titans, but you can't say that you can't go get Clowney for a year and say you're going to compete for the Super Bowl and then come out and lose that game. I know that the Broncos are improved, but there's so many question marks to talk about. You got rookie receivers. You have a Drew Lock going into it. Melvin Gordon's fine. Their offensive line is fine. With what they have lost on defense, I don't think that they're spectacular. Simmons is great on the back end, but go in there, handle your business. I mean, I'm excited about Clowney. The offense should be consistent. You have everything working for you other than the altitude. Go in there and take care of business. If you struggle with it, I think it's going to raise more questions. Nobody should be necessarily excited if they do go take care of business other than they did what they're supposed to do. Business trip.
Agree with everything that's said. I'm not going to add much more to that other than I'm going to watch the right side of that offensive line that Zach mentioned and see how they're going, because that's just, for me, it's not that they're weak by any means, but that is the weak spot of the offensive line. I also want to see Jonnu Smith and how his development continues, because that's a guy that I was low on, and I'll say it. I was unfair to him early in his career, And I'll admit that now that I was wrong because he's really improved. And I'm excited to see him take that next step in this offense and go from there, despite what I wrote about my disappointment prediction in the predictions article that Jonathan put out. So that's going to wrap it up for us. We just want to get some final thoughts there. Also wanted to say and wrap up, the other thing I'm looking forward to in that game is the Sunday night roundtable, Monday night edition. So make sure you stick around for after the game. Come back, join us. We're going to talk about everything that happened in the game. Answer some questions.
That's a Tuesday morning roundtable.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Monday night, Tuesday morning roundtable, depending on your time zone. So, but come check it out. We'll be in there talking about it. We may be Zach may be in a mood or a way. we'll see what happens.
Be asleep.
Zach will be asleep. Okay, fine. Well, we'll see how we're feeling. Some of us will be here. We'll talk Titans with you. We'll answer questions. We'll go through what we liked about the game, what we did, and kind of a rapid reaction to come out before all of our in-depth analysis throughout the week. Be sure to also tomorrow to check in. Zach and Justin Gravers are going to check in fantasy advice last minute show Sunday morning. Zach, give me the time and the title of that show.
We don't have a title yet, so we're probably just going to call it Broadway Sports Fantasy Advice or just Fantasy Advice. It's going to be at 11 a.m. So right when injury reports are coming out and this and that. So it's going to be me and Graver and you guys. So you guys have to get on. You guys have to ask the questions, your sit starts, your any kind of question that you may have about fantasy. Because as soon as we're out of questions, we're shutting down because there's football to watch.
Y'all don't want to stare at each other.
No.
You got to get your own lineups in there. So you can't expect to hang around.
I mean, me and Justin will, we can always find something to talk about, as you know, when you're on the phone trying to corral us.
So I'm playing Justin in the Dynasty League that we have, and I'm going to be asking him all the sit starts.
You better come in with it. You better have you better be masked when you come in there so he doesn't know he's advice to you. Yeah, exactly. So look forward to that tomorrow. Look forward to that tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. to get your fantasy advice before the Sunday games start. I think Zach could also possibly have some daily advice for you as well if you're playing in a daily fantasy league also. So just check that out. It'll be a good show for them. Monday night, I'm excited about. Stick around for the roundtable afterwards. But that's going to do it for this first edition of Broadway Breakfast. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for coming, stopping by. Go to BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Check out all of our articles and catch up before you get some time for Monday night. See what we think. Appreciate it. Tweet us at BroadwayTN. We out.